I got from the inmates. And I think that's the respect that I gave them and that I got back from them as well. So, Wormwood Scrubs. Wormwood Scrubs. What was I doing there? Well, I was doing some work to do with getting the inmates ready for release and life on the outside. So I devised a learning program, where I was teaching them about financial security, financial literacy. I was getting them confident with their basic numeracy skills and their mathematical skills. And it was all about me giving them that confidence, making them understand and making them know that they are good people and they've all got a brain. And to this day, some of those young people, in fact, most of the young people who I work with, they were just so amazing. They were polite. The minute they knew it was Friday and the lesson was going to start at 9:30, my little area where I was teaching them was ready. The chairs were there, pieces of paper, the pencils, a little whiteboard was ready for me. And when they saw me walking across the path to get to the building, I could see them all rushing to go and sit in their chairs. And they all said, "Come on, Mr. Numbervator here. It's the maths lesson." That made me feel good because it showed that they wanted to learn. It showed that they wanted me to be there. And the minute I walked in, that was it. There was no noise at all. Wormwood Scrubs Prison, I know it's got different names, and I know about how old it is and what it hasn't got and what it has got. But the young people in there, they really were special. They really were special. And I made them feel special, and I gave them my best as well. So I've got some quotes that some of them said to me, because when people say to me, "Why do I need to learn maths?" Well, coming from an inmate in a prison, that is where their freedom has been restricted for different reasons, rightly or wrongly, but they understand why they're there, but they can also understand the benefit of them learning maths. And one of them said to me one day, I asked him, why do you like coming to my sessions? Why do you enjoy learning maths? He said to me, "Well, I want to get better at maths for my release and my family, and I want to be able to help my daughter." And those last 4 words, "to help my daughter," that melted my understanding of human beings. He wanted to come to the sessions because he wanted to be able to help his daughter on his release. And so I would say to him, "What topics? Do you know the topics?" Because obviously there was a communication between his daughter and himself in the inside. And he was telling me about, basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We call it the 4 rules, but also about percentages and decimals and fractions. So that was his focus. So each of the inmates had their own focus, and I was able to tailor my teaching to each of those. I think there was about 15 or 20. It was really, really good. And I've been better at maths and do some exams and qualifications. But my priority with Mr. Numbervator is to master multiplication and subtraction. That's what I did. That's what I did with them. And it was absolutely great. Every Friday morning, I used to look forward to going into Wormwood Scrubs. I didn't look forward to actually getting into the building, because that was like a lengthy process. There's a lot of security there, but obviously you have to go through that, so that's not a problem. But once I was in and once I was teaching, I had the time of my life working with these inmates, and it was just so rewarding. So what I did was, because I wanted to assess their development and their knowledge and how they were doing, I used to set them different assessments, different tests throughout my time there. And some of the questions, I've got actually one of the booklets in front of me that I used. I've just shown it on the screen. I've got one of the booklets there, and it was, do you know what? even when I go to a normal secondary school, some of these questions that I've got in this booklet here, some of the pupils in secondary schools that I go to, they could not answer these questions. So that just showed me and proved to me that these young people who were in Wormwood Scrubs, they were actually really quite clever. You know, they were there, they've made a mistake, as we all have, as I have, hands up, but they got caught, and so they're having to do their time. But they were really, really clever. There was one young man who I actually gave him a GCSE paper one day, and he just walked it. That means he answered every question without any hesitation, and he scored a 9. Now, a level 9 is the top mark you can get in a GCSE paper, and he did it in about less than an hour. That just shows you the ability and the intelligence that these young people have got, you know. So some of the questions, I mean, one question was 37 plus 296 plus 745. That was one of my questions. Another question was 7,436 subtract 4,159. Another question, 293 multiplied by 7. Another question, 7 plus 9 times 3. These were all basic questions that I was giving to these young people because I wanted to see what they could do. And I mean, they were just walking some of these questions. So that was some basic 4 rules of operation. Then another part of the booklet was calculating percentages of amount. So they had to calculate 10% of a number, 15% of a number, 75% of a number, 32% of a number, and so on. They then had to calculate fractions of whole amounts, which some of them found challenging, which is not a problem, but that was the reason why I was there. And then in my little booklet here, we've looked at angles. So they had to find missing angles, calculate angles around the point. We looked at labeling parts of the circle. So where's the radius, diameter, circumference, tangent, chord? Yes, the chord. Another part of my booklet was they had to plan a journey. So I gave them prices of a day ticket, a weekly ticket, and a monthly train ticket, and they had to work out the best value. That one was so interesting because that one involved everyone in the group. So everyone was saying, no, do it this one, do this, do it that. But that was really, really interesting. And then we looked at data handling, estimation. We looked at converting minutes to hours. We looked at interpreting charts and graphs. And it was really, really, it was a lovely paper. And everyone just did so well. So I tested them on entry. So the first day I started with them, I gave them an assessment there. And then about a quarter of the way, I gave them another assessment. Then halfway through, another one, 3/4 of the way, there's the use of fractions. And then finally, when the time to finish the course, the time of me working there was up, I gave them one final one. But it was just so rewarding. And it was just so interesting working with these young people. I didn't want to know what they were in there for. As I said, I just treated them as human beings. But I did ask them because a lot of them came to the session saying, I don't like maths. Why do I have to learn maths? And so that was what I was up against. But after the first session, the following sessions, by the time I walked in, they were ready for learning. And there was not a noise in the environment. You could literally hear a pin drop. It was just so rewarding. Every Friday in Wormwood Scrubs, I loved it. Dean's looking at me, and I don't know what he's thinking, but Dean's going to come to the radio short. He's going to ask me some questions shortly. But yeah, it was really amazing. But I said to them, when did you start feeling that maths wasn't relevant to you? And it was interesting, from some of the responses and the answers, it was all to do with the character and the personality of the maths teacher they had at secondary school. Very interesting. Most of them said that is when they started to feel this way. And I said to them, how can I challenge and how can I change your perception and your understanding? That's what I was doing. And I said to them, so you've said when, so who was the cause behind you feeling that way? Once again, it was the teacher, and it was in the classroom. And so when I'm doing my teacher training and my teacher development, that's what I always tell ECTs, early careers teachers. They were once called newly qualified teachers, NQT. It's about our personality. What do we bring to the math session? How can we make the session lively and engaging? And some of the marks that I got from the assessments were, I'm going to read some of them out because they were phenomenal. So the topics that I covered were algebra, percentages, circles, fractions, interpreting charts and graphs, using phone tariffs, electricity tariffs and phone tariffs and gas tariffs, buying petrol from the station. We looked at how to get the best for the individual person. We looked at timetables. If you want to get a train or a bus, how do you read the 24-hour clock and the 12-hour clock? We looked at planning events. So we looked at planning a party for that gentleman. He wanted to have a party for his daughter when he was released. He was going to be released in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. So we looked at planning a party. I gave him a make-believe budget, and we had to work within that budget. It was brilliant. We looked at paying bills. We looked at completing forms for bank accounts, council tax, rent support, that sort of thing. And then we looked at shopping and spending and saving and savings. So it was very much to do with practical learning. But more so, once we'd covered all of those topics, a lot of them wanted to go on to do level 1, level 2 of maths, and about 7 or 8 of them wanted to do their GCSE maths. It was brilliant. I mean, some of the marks, one inmate got 35 out of 40. Another one got 40 out of 42, another one 38 out of 42, another one 35 out of 42, another one 37 out of 42. These were high-scoring young men when it comes to mathematics. You know, all I could say to them was, I just wish you all the best on your release, because I know that when you are released from prison, I just know that each of those young men, some of them were older, but each of and they're going to do well for themselves and their families. So that was my time in Wormwood Scrubs, and it was just so rewarding. One of them said to me they wanted to learn how to do multiplication and division to help me with managing my money outside. Another one said this was a young boy of, I think, 18 or 19, and he was recently new to Wormwood Scrubs, and he joined my group, and he said to me, I just want to enjoy learning maths again, which I thought was amazing. I just simply want to enjoy learning maths again. And for me, that was just beautiful. Another one was to use and understand maths in real life. Another one said to do percentages and fractions better. Another one said to help me prepare for life on the outside so that I don't fall into trouble again. So they know why they're in there. They know that they've done wrong. They were doing something about it. And then finally, another one said to be more independent when I'm released and to function better outside on my release. So that was my experience of Wormwood Scrubs and working with the inmates there, and it was just so rewarding. And as I said, I've got one of the papers here, calculating missing angles around a point, angles in quadrilaterals and circles. Another one was about planning their train ticket. So I gave them a daily ticket was £3.40, a weekly was £12, a monthly was £54. So if they're going to spend 15 days, which is the best one to get, they got that one correct. We looked at looking at a range of data. So we looked at mode, mean, median, and range. Yes, this is what I did with my inmates in there. It was absolutely amazing. We looked at estimation, converting minutes to hours, converting seconds to minutes, minutes to hours, hours to days, hours to months, and to weeks. It was just amazing. Then we looked at degrees in a circle, interpreting charts and graphs. I gave them a pie chart. and all of their calculations I kept, all of their workings out I kept, and it was, when I look back at it now, 4 days next week I'm going to do this and do that. That is what made for me Wormwood Scrubs so amazing. And I'd go back again. If I was invited, I would definitely go back again, because everyone deserves a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. They're in there for different reasons. What can we do to support them when they come out on the outside? So that was a Wormwood Scrubs, and it was an experience, and it was really exciting. So why do we teach? Why do we teach maths, and what's the purpose of maths? Well, I've mentioned earlier, it's an essential life skill, because every day I'm using maths. Even when I was coming to the studio, I said, well, I'm going to leave my house at this time. I know there's going to be traffic, so I'm going to anticipate traffic. I need to get here for a certain time to set myself up, to test all the equipment and so on. That to me is maths. It was to do with time. It's a life skill. I went to buy some snacks for Dean in that blue bag, and so I said to myself, well, how much is the packet of this going to cost, or packet of that going to cost? And so that to me was money. It was to do with problem solving, and what maths teaches us is about problem solving. It's about breaking problems down into breaking complex problems down into smaller, manageable bits, smaller, manageable steps, and then going through, getting to the answer step by step, and you're building each way. Analyzing data. I mentioned in one of their tests, in the inmates in Wormwood Scrubs, one of their test papers, they had to analyze data in a pie chart. They had to identify patterns. They had to talk about patterns to me. These are all key math skills that we use every day. A lot of the young people that say to me, why do I need to learn maths? The minute I start talking about the football league, the football premiership tables, where's Arsenal, where's Chelsea, where's Man U, how many points have they got? They know straight away who's number 1, 2, 3, and 4. How many points? How many goals have been scored? Goals against. That is maths. Without even realizing, that is high level mathematics. And that's what makes the teaching of maths so special. Okay? Learning maths trains our brain, our mind, to follow logical steps. So if I'm looking at percentages, what do I need to do first? How do I set out the question? How am I going to solve it? It's the logical steps that I'm going to take. The teaching and learning maths, it encourages us to question results. So if you're looking at trend, the more it rains, the more umbrellas that are being sold. That's quite a normal trend. Or the hotter the weather, the more ice creams are sold. Why? Why are more ice creams sold in the hot weather? Because I've always been told that when it is hot, you're meant to drink hot cups of tea to cool you down. But people buy more ice creams. So it helps you to question results and data and information. Working with numbers, and that's me, Mr. Numbervator. Numbers, and you're using numbers. And don't forget, you've got the STEM subjects, STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and maths. Okay, maths is integral to science. Maths is integral to technology. Maths is integral to engineering. Maths is everywhere. So when people say to me, what's the point of me learning maths? I'm telling you the point of you learning maths is because it is so integral in part of our everyday life. Finance and financial interest. When you get money, do you save some money for a rainy day? Do you spend it all on the same day? If one of your friends needs help, do you help them out? And then you say, right, you're going to pay them back in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Do you charge them interest? Not that you must charge your friends interest, but it's all about financial management. It's about data analysis. And, even things like cooking. People who know me will know I love cooking. So, do I go and buy a bag of rice? How much is a bag of rice? Is it 5 kilos? Is it 10 kilos? How many servings will that get? That is everyday life. Budgeting. I'm going to put this amount of money for food. I need this amount of money for the gas, electricity, and so on and so on. Discounts. Do I get a train or do I get a bus? Do I travel off peak? Do I travel during peak time? What time does the train or the bus leave? These are all everyday life occurrences that we all go through, but maybe we don't realize what we're going through. And that is what is so important. Thank you to the teacher who has just said, thank you, Mr. Numbervator, for highlighting your work in the prisons. Yeah, as I said, my time, my work in Wormwood Scrubs was absolutely so enlightening. And yes, I would go back if I'm asked by the governor. So I think it's Governor Amy. I forget her surname now, but yeah, but Governor Amy, she was so amazing to me, and she made me feel so welcome. And yes, Amy, if you're listening, Governor Amy, yes, get me back. I'll be back there straight away on a Friday morning. It builds so maths helps build confidence. So when I'm walking about, when I go shopping and I'm putting things into my trolley, I'm keeping a running total of what my bill's going to be. When I get to the checkout, I know how much to pay. People look at me and think, how do you work it out? That's what I do. And don't forget, maths helps you when you're doing physics, architecture, medicine, business. Dean, as you know, a part of Sovereign Comics, Dean does all the graphics and all the designs. And without realizing, Dean is it's all about measurement. You know, because the other day I said to Dean, look, I want my leaflet to look like this. Can you put this box there? He had to manipulate the space that he's got to work within. That was maths. And when it came, it was perfect. So this is what I mean by it's a real life. And lastly, maths is fun. It's enjoyable. I've taught you so many times about different maths problems and different math sequences. And you know, you've got Fibonacci, you've got the nth term. Maths is all over. It's all over the place, and it's so important. So yes, that's the reason why you all need to learn maths. And that's the reason why the maths show was what was created. It was to show you the purpose, the meaning of maths, and to allow you to feel confident with maths. That's why I'm here every Wednesday on Chalker Community Radio Station, working with you when it comes to mathematics. Now, we're going to go for a short break. When we come back, Dean's going to be in the hot chair opposite me. So his chair's not as hot as mine, but you know, he's going to be in the chair opposite me. And I'm going to be telling you a story. I'm going to be telling you about Charles Bronson. Now, Charles Bronson has been dubbed as Britain's most dangerous and notorious prisoner. Okay, he's 72 years old. He has got a couple of children. He was actually born Charles Arthur Salvador, but he changed his name over the period of time. I'll tell you more about it after the break, but it's a lovely story. But the purpose of me mentioning Charles Bronson is because of what he did to support me with young people, young children, and especially when it comes to mathematics. So don't go too far. It's going to be really, really revealing after our short break. See you soon.
Go to www.sovereigncomics.co.uk and get your latest issue of Mr. Numbervator's Maths Comic Book series today. You are now tuned in to the Mr. Numbervator show every Thursday, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station. Let's get mathematical.
Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the Maths Show with me, Mr. Numbervator, on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station. Now, before the ad break, I was talking to you about maths and why people say, I don't like maths, what's the purpose of me learning maths and so on. And I was talking to you about my experience and my work that I did in Wormwood Scrubs prison with the inmates, and you know, the amazing time that I had and the outstanding and phenomenal knowledge and application of maths from these young people. The second part of the show is about a person called Mr. Charles Bronson. Now, Mr. Charles Bronson has been dubbed as Britain's most notorious and most dangerous prisoner. That's how he's regarded. That's how he's pictured in the media. There's been films made on him, and there's been lots of books written about him, lots of articles, and so on. Now, maybe you're thinking, how did I get involved with Charles Bronson? And why did I put there about sit-ups, drawings, and letters? So I know that Dean wants to ask me a couple of questions. So good afternoon, Dean. Good evening, Dean.
Good evening, Mr. Numbervator.
How are you?
I'm good, I'm fine.
Good. So Dean, yes, when I mentioned the name Charles Bronson, I could see that your face lit up. So
firstly, I'd just like to say it's very interesting to hear what you had to say about working with the inmates at Wormwood Scrubs. I knew that you did that work, but I wasn't quite sure how it all came about. But it sounds like it was quite rewarding. And it is very important that people who end up in that situation have a chance to be rehabilitated. So it was interesting to hear a little bit more about that. But you mentioned to me the other day that you met another inmate who doesn't really have, presumably he's not ever going to be rehabilitated.
No.
So
unfortunately,
I guess this was at a different time.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how did that come about and why?
Okay. All right. So I've known Dean a long time, and Dean and myself, we used to do self-defense. We used to train a long time ago, and we've been to Indonesia several times to represent Great Britain in competitions and so on and so on. Dean also knows that I was like the master of sit-ups when it came to training. So whenever we had training, whenever it was the physical side of the warm-up, I did the sit-ups, the press-ups, and all of that stuff. So Dean, and people maybe are aware, or maybe they're not aware, that I set a new world record for sit-ups. Now, the world record before I set the new world record was 70,500 non-stop sit-ups in 24 hours. That's what the world record was, and that was held by an American soldier. His name is Lou Scripper, S-C-R-I-P-P-A, Lou Scripper, and he actually set the record then. So there's me. I know that I can do lots and lots of sit-ups. I can do hundreds and thousands. I said, well, I'm going to challenge that record, but I was going to do it to raise money for a children's charity and to build a school in Ghana. So that was the purpose. That was the reason why I wanted to set the world record. So anyway, I started off slowly, Dean, and I remember I went to a school assembly, and they were trying to raise money to buy a guide dog for a blind pupil. And I said, well, okay, listen, why don't we turn this event into me raising money for a blind to buy the guide dog? So we arranged it with the head teacher and the parents and the children. And then in the assembly, I did 1,500 non-stop sit-ups. Now, obviously, as you can imagine, it was done for a charity. And so the newspapers came down. It went into the newspapers. I think a couple of TV people came down to interview me and so on. And when it went out, I suddenly got this letter from a prison. And so I didn't know how I didn't know what happened, but what I do know now what happened was that they knew the school that I was working in, and so they contacted the head. This is the prison department. Contacted the head teacher, and then the head teacher gave permission for the letter to be sent to the school because it was done for charity, and then the letter was then passed on to me. And that's how it was all done. I didn't know at the time, but that's how it was all done. I later found out. So when I opened the letter, it's from Mr. Charles Bronson. And because he's a fitness fanatic and he exercises 10 times a day, he had heard about what I was doing to raise money for a children's charity. So he issued me a challenge, which was, can we do sit-ups simultaneously? He was going to do it in prison. I was going to do it in a venue, in a school hall, and we were going to do it live, and then we were going to see how many each of us could do. So the day was arranged, and then it was live and whatever. And then I think in the end I did about 3,000 or 4,000 non-stop, and then Charles Bronson did about 500 less than me. So to this day, I know that when I have communication, I'm always being told by him that I'm going to get you back for that. But anyway, that's all done with humor. So that's how I got to be in contact with Charles Bronson.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
We need to do a special on you about your adventures doing all the sit-ups, because it sounds like you've had a lot of different experiences and stories.
Yeah, I mean, I went to France to challenge the French record holder, and then I went to the majority of shopping centres around the country, and at each shopping centre I did about 1,000 non-stop sit-ups just to raise money for. At the time, it was Save the Children and Dr. Bernardo's and Children in Need. It was those three charities that I was doing. Because of my background in teaching and young children, that's why I did it. So yeah, fine, that's a good idea, because I went to about 30 shopping centres up and down the country. One of my favourite ones was the one in Watford, and because the reason why the one in Watford was a lot of celebrities live up there. And as I was doing the sit-ups non-stop, I saw different celebrities coming in, and they donated quite a lot of money to the charities, and that was really, really exciting. But that's how I did it, Dean.
Okay, that was very good. Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to Charles Bronson, so I was communicating with him, and obviously because of safety, my letters had to be opened and read by the prison department. But anyway, it was all done properly. I had to go through the right way to do it, and it was all okay, and that was it. So I had this idea one day, because I heard that Charles Bronson is a fantastic artist and illustrator. He does lots of illustrations. So I said to him, Charles, you know that I'm a teacher working in schools with young children, and some of these young children are always getting in trouble. There's one boy, there's one girl who's always talking when they shouldn't talk, playing truant from school, not concentrating. And one of them the other day we heard was smoking and all that kind of stuff. He goes, right, I hear you, Mr. Numbervator. So he drew me, this is the first part, he drew me six pastel hand-drawn pictures of teaching children, say no to smoking, it's bad for you. And so it's a picture of a young child with a cigarette, and then the way that Mr. Bronson did it is the young child with a cigarette, and then when you follow through, it's like a comic. When you follow through the sequence, it comes to the end where the child doesn't smoke anymore, because Charles Bronson showed them what it can cause and how it can stunt your growth and things like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Absolutely amazing. I've got all of these drawings at home. I've got every single, and he signed every single one. He has signed.
Really? You still have the originals?
I've got the originals.
Okay. And
everyone was signed by him and dated. And that I know is something people say to me that is something that is unheard of. How many people have got that?
I think that some people around the world might find that quite valuable. I know, certain people follow people like Charles Bronson.
Right.
And yeah, like one day that'll be worth a lot of money, I think.
I mean, it's there. One day when you come around, I'll show you, because they're
Okay.
absolutely, and his illustrations and drawings are just so absolutely perfect. And I think I remember, I can't remember, but I think I sent the prison some money so that he could buy some of these nice pastel colors,
Right.
because he used pastels and pencils,
I see.
and that's what he used to do it. And so each drawing has got a title like "Be Good at School." But the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because when it comes to maths, he did some drawings about taking maths seriously, about learning about addition. So he had the children, the characters, and he was actually teaching these children how to do addition through the drawings.
Really?
And that is what I found was just so amazing. So every time I hear about Charles Bronson and he's done this, he's done that, I know he's notorious. I know that he went in for armed robbery, wounding with intent and damage and so on. I know all of that, but I'm looking at the good side of him. Yeah. It's easy to look at the bad side of people, but what about the good side of him? What about what he was trying to do for me?
Right.
And so we were communicating. We were communicating for a very, very long time. I know that he got married, and so I think his attention was more to do with his new wife. He got married on the inside.
Okay.
Yeah, he got married on the inside, and so we lost. Not that we've
And
lost.
his wife is still outside.
I think so. Yes. As far as I know, yes. But that kind of information. But as far as I know, that's the situation. But talking to him and communicating with him, he was such a nice gentleman. Okay. Such a nice gentleman. And what he did, these drawings, I've got them hidden somewhere, not at home, they're hidden. And they are, you just mentioned it, they will be worth something, but I'm not looking at that.
Well, I guess it's just the nature of what you do. You could draw out the positivity.
Yes.
Out of anybody.
Yes.
Just because what you're doing, you're teaching maths, you're trying to improve people's education, people's prospects in life. So yeah, you will be able to draw out the best out of people. Yeah,
thank you, Dean. And I mean, when he did the first lot for me, I remember it came in the post and it was stamped. I forget what prison it was, but the prison stamp was on there. And the postman knocked on my door, and I had to go because it was a big one of those big cardboard things. So you didn't bend. So it didn't bend. And when I took the first 3 or 4 out, they were absolutely. You're an artist, Dean. You're into design and you're into drawings and everything. You do the comics, yeah. I mean, when you see them, they are absolutely brilliant. And then he actually drew me.
Yeah.
So he got a picture of me and actually drew me, and then he put me in the actual drawings. And then the children, obviously, he just made up the children. But I explained certain characters to him.
Right.
So he actually. So I said there's one boy who was always talking, always naughty, couldn't stop talking. So he designed a young child and made to look like someone who's always talking and can't stop moving and stuff. And all of these things he did, and that's why I've got a soft spot, because as I said earlier, everyone deserves a second chance. You see, I'm not going to. I don't need to know the ins and outs, why he went in, what he did, what he didn't do, and so on. All I know is that all of us have done things wrong in some part of our life. Look at our politicians. Look at the fraud and look at them, what they were claiming. All of that is wrong. It's wrong what happened, but they're not on the inside. But unfortunately, he and other prisoners who I met in Wormer Scrubs, they were caught and they're doing their time. So I think we have to be really careful about how we judge people.
Right.
And I know that I was taught never to judge people, because judge and you will be judged, as they say. So whatever's gone wrong, how can we repair it? And you said it earlier. So that's the history behind me and Charles Bronson. What do you think, Dean?
It was very interesting. I had no idea about this.
Oh,
So,
right. Okay. Okay.
Don't tell me any more of your stories, because I still want to be surprised. You can make it into another show later down the line.
No problem, no problem, no problem. But as I said, today's show was about Wormwood Scrubs and the work that I did with the inmates there, and it was about Charles Bronson, dubbed as Britain's most notorious and dangerous and fearful prisoner. But I've just turned it around. I've just shown you that the inmates, they were amazing. When I used to go to Wormwood Scrubs, my friends would say to me, "Aren't you scared?" No, but there is one story that I must share with you. The first time I went to meet them, the first time I met to meet my group, there was 15 at first, and then the group got bigger, so I had to have two smaller groups because we had about 30 in the end. So we had two groups of 50. Anyway, the first time I went to meet my first group of about 12 to 15, I shook their hands, and there was one young guy, about 20. I could see that he was ripped, full of muscles and really strong, yeah, really well built, strong and tall, yeah. And he shook my hand. And when he shook my hand hurt for the next 2 days. He was so strong. His handshake was so strong. Okay. So when he let go of my hand, I wanted to go ouch, but obviously I couldn't. But for the next 2 days, I always tell people, I tell my son this, I always tell people that my hand was hurting for the next 2 days because of his strength. But that same young man, he was the one who controlled all of the other inmates. If anyone was going to start talking, he would look at them and say, "Excuse me, I want to learn. If you don't want to learn, go back." He was very, very strict with his fellow inmate, okay? And even though he had that strong grip, and you could see the muscles, the veins and everything, deep down, he was such a clever, warm young person. He wanted to tell me what he was in there for. I said, "No, I don't want to know what you're in there for, because I want to treat you as I've met you, as a human being like me. My job is to teach you maths and to make you feel better about maths and financial, so that when you are released, you can survive on the outside independently and with confidence." And that's how I left it, you see. And we became friends. And I always said, one day if you see me on the outside, remember who I am. He goes, "Listen, Mr. Numbervator, when I'm released and I see you, no one will ever touch you. No one will ever harm you, because I'll make sure that you're protected." That's what he always said to me. He always said that to me, and he was really clever. And I got him up to foundation maths. So I got him up to the stage where I gave him a foundation maths paper and he passed it.
Okay.
This is a young guy, 2021, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Full of tattoos and everything. Not that tattoos are bad or anything, but he was just amazing. And I wished them all the best of luck when I was going. And I said to them, you know my name. If you need any support, I'm always there to support and direct you. So let's see what happens. But Wormwood Scrubs was a lovely prison. The people who worked there were really nice to me. I had to go through the rigorous training, which I thought was amazing. And that was before I stepped one foot in the prison. But the lady who did that was amazing. All the training. And when I got to work with these young people, these young men, it was just so rewarding, Dean. It was just so rewarding. So, they're walking about, some of them are out walking around London, around England, or wherever. Okay. Who knows, one day I might bump into them. But they were really good, and I'm glad I was given that opportunity. So, yeah. So, as I've just said, listeners, today's show has been about why people say, what's the purpose of maths? I don't need to learn maths. Why am I being taught maths? I've just given you classic examples of why. Dean was asking me about Charles Bronson, dubbed as Britain's most notorious and dangerous and aggressive prisoner. I've told you what he's done for me with the drawings. Maybe, as Dean said, maybe I should publish them. Maybe I should get them out there, because what he did is absolutely amazing. But I know that I know that when he was sending them to me, he did say that it's not for me to make money on the back of them because of who he is. It's for the young people and what he wants to give back to society. Right. And that's the reason why I have not gone out and done the media round with them, because that's not what I agreed to, and I won't do that either.
Yeah, it's the right decision, I guess.
Yeah. I won't do that because of the respect I had for him. Yeah, but one day, if I get to go back, if I get to go do more sit-ups with him, maybe we can look at another record I can set for him. You know, because he's very strong, and it was such an experience. It was such an experience. Yeah, Charles Bronson and Wormwood Scrubs Prison. Okay, we're coming to the end of today's show. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for sending me. Thank you all for sending me messages. I'm glad you've enjoyed the show. If you do want to know more about Charles Bronson and what he did when it comes to schools and education, if there is anyone listening from the Department for Education who wants to see some of these drawings that he did, I don't mind showing you. Because they could be used to motivate and encourage our young children. And that's what I think Dean is saying. We could use them in a much more purposeful and meaningful way, and that would give recognition to what he did. Thank you to Wormwood Scrubs Prison, excuse me, for allowing me to work in the prison. And yes, Governor Amy, if you need me to come back again, you've got my contact details, and I'd love to come and do some more work with your inmates. Thank you, listeners, for listening, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Next week's going to be our last radio show because it's the holidays and schools are going to be closing and colleges and whatever. But we will be back in September in the new school year. Have a great evening. Thank you, and see you all next week, Wednesday. Bye.